Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debate. This is the League Two podcast. We're discussing three teams that could be in the mix come the end of the season. Swindon Town, of course, we've got Ben Nichols from Fools Rush In. Grimsby Town, we've got great Dave Leaster from the View from the Finders podcast. We're currently joined by Danny Shepherd from the One Up Front blog and the Old Dead Tree fanzine on Salford City. Danny, thanks so much for joining us. A goalless draw against Cambridge last time out, a bit of a rarity for Carl Robinson's side.
Yeah, I just think what Cambridge did is that they stopped us counter-attacking. I couldn't tell you how they did that, but I feel that we had the least number of breaks that we've ever had in the last few months. So whatever the plan was, it seemed to work. And the fact they forced us, we started the game strangely with two. I would swear it was a 4-2-2-2. And we had two attacking midfielders behind our starting strikers, but then Carl was forced to change it because he said Cambridge's line-up or the way they were set out surprised him. But I definitely think that's the first time I've seen us play two number 10s behind our strikers ever under Carl. But he changed it, like I said.
Of course, yeah. I think the one moment of promise, certainly in open play, because I think the other half chances you had were from set pieces. But I did like a moment where Cambridge's midfield got a bit disjointed from what I've caught on the highlights. Oh, yeah. So I think there was a massive gap between their central midfielders. I think it was Corey Smith and Pansy who was way from the other side. And Haji Minoga showed a really nice bit of spatial awareness to basically with his first touch drive infield, and then that kind of alerted Kelly and Mai, who made a nice run and possibly could have done better with the final action. But that was the moment where I'd look at, certainly from a Haji Minoga's perspective, and say, okay, he's got the athleticism. We've always known he can do that. But if he can do that, where spot that the space is opening up centrally and make that run, that suggests that he's adding new layers to his game under Carl Robinson.
Yeah, I mean, to say it's limitless, his potential is probably a bit over the top. But I think he's better than League Two. He's had definitely. The fact he's still here at this age, I think is, I don't know. Maybe it's a lack of confidence. Maybe he's not the most confident lad. But what you said there, I have noticed. I think it was Ros Longello who was playing that position against Wolves' under-21 kids last night. But I noticed him trying to do the same thing. It seems that from that right wing-back slot, we're trying to angle diagonally inwards. So I don't think it's just Hadj, although he makes very good use of it, because I think his spatial awareness is very good. So I think it's more of a team plan than a player-specific thing. But good spot for you anyway, Gab, I would say.
Oh, thank you. But I definitely
think... to patronise you. I'm genuinely...
No, I'll take all the compliments I can get.
Yeah.
But no, I think if it's more of a team thing, but even then you still need to know, because some players are actually quite limited in how much information or instruction they can process. So it does suggest with Haji Minoga that he can process what Carl Robinson's telling him, which again, I think bodes well for him when it comes to upcoming transfer windows.
Of course.
So I wanted to ask you about, you mentioned breaking a team down, and I suppose why do you think Salford had difficulty with that in contrast with some of the more counter-attacking performances that we've seen from Salford City this season?
My theory, again, I tend, there aren't many Salford content creators to be influenced by, so I've kind of cornered the market there, really. So, but my view is, I think two things happened and we reacted to what they did. So I think when a team plays for as long a period, I would say 12 months, to play as long and as direct as we have for nearly a year, then teams would be stupid if they were to constantly think, well, let's still press them high and let them play over the top of us. That would be stupid. So I think Cambridge are probably one of the first teams this season to really sit a little bit deeper. And I didn't notice that as much as I noticed how often our wide centre-backs, in particular Luke Garbutt, had room to carry it. Because it's almost, it's the chicken and the egg, or it's the chess match that if they sit deep, we carry. If they push up, we go over the top. So I think we're trying to actually make them adjust to us. But I personally think that they were one of the most well-organised teams I've seen. I don't know what your view is of Cambridge, but I think they were excellent, really.
Well, certainly from a defensive perspective,
Yeah,
yeah.
at least.
I suppose I would imagine, Danny, that one of the sort of ideas that you'd go for in terms of breaking teams down might be to get maybe that Harris and Garbett combination going, because we've seen Kadeem Harris drive infield quite a lot this season, and maybe that comes even more naturally to him than Minoga because he's right-footed. He's a right footer on the left, and I would think that maybe with somebody like Luke Garbett and the kind of deliveries that he's capable of producing, that would be what I would imagine Carl Robinson's thinking of, getting it into Danudo.
Yeah, I actually when I was looking at our back five yesterday, because even though again it was against a lot of young lads for Wolves, I do think that basically we set up the same kind of way, and it looks to me that it's almost like a 5-pointed wheel that shifts around, and wherever the ball is, that wing back pushes up and presses, and then it does mean that because we've got so many players who have defensive responsibility in that five, that you can allow overlaps, underlaps, or any of those kind of things. And Luke Garbett, I'd love to see his crossing stats for this season. I don't think there's been many, but then again, why would you cross to our front two? Kelly and my Danudo, I wouldn't cross to them. I don't think they're worth crossing to, or at least not above the neck. You know what I'm saying? There's no target man there.
Okay.
Have I lost you? Have I gone too far?
No, no, you got me. I think I was just I was pondering the wisdom. No, I think yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think if I think of Danudo at his best, it's running towards goal and first time finishes and all that kind of thing. I did want to ask you about Callum Cisse, because we've seen what he can do from a pressing point of view, because he's a very energetic footballer. How does he handle these kind of games where it is maybe a deeper defensive block the opposition are playing?
Unfortunately, not well.
Right.
Because again, I wrote, I reckon I put in about 800 to 1,000 words just on him in my most recent coverage of the Cambridge game. Because what unfortunately happened because we were playing with these, there was a lot of attacking channels we had there, because we had a front two, and for a time we had two in behind them as number 10s. We had wing back, so it was like, where should Callum play? And it seemed that because there was two in behind our strike force, he wasn't receiving the ball a lot facing forwards. He had to receive it a lot with his back to goal. I don't think it's his strength. It didn't used to be Kelly and my strength, but now they're so scared of him getting the ball and running past them that players stand off Kelly. He's earned that. Whereas Callum Cisse is still quite a bit of a diamond in the rough. So it seemed, it's interesting you talk about Haj Minoga, because Haj Minoga was almost, a diagonal underlapper quite a lot, which meant that Cisse was pushed out wide to the right. So the touchline was like an extra defender. Nothing was working for him, really. He kept his body shape naturally means that his coordination for his lower limbs is not brilliant. Unfortunately, despite his physical attributes, that part of his game lacks. So I do think he was almost kind of in a little area on his own towards the right-hand touchline. He kept getting caught out. His first touch isn't brilliant, but the thing that's been most impressive about him is just the number of times he's found a Salford shirt with a through ball and put people through. His assist numbers, I probably said to you before, should be double what they are if people like Danudo and friends would have finished them. And I think people don't realise how good Cisse has been adjusting to a more attacking role, because he was a box-to-box midfielder for Wealdstone, I believe. He wasn't playing like he's playing now, or where he's playing now. Massive credit to a young lad like him. Work ethic, I've heard, is off the scale.
Right, yeah, fair play to him. And it shows, again, a little bit like we've talked about with Minoga, working with Carl Robinson, players are adding new layers to their game. And I do think, as a technical coach, as much as we can sometimes look at the documentary and think he's doing a bit of an Oscar, Oscar team talk, I do think that you have to give Carl a lot of credit for how he can develop individuals and sort of refine their games through quality coaching.
I'd agree. And I mean, I'm not sure what. I was almost thinking, who else could I put that point the finger at and say who else has he developed? Because yes, Cissé's one. Minogue, I think Minogue surprised himself from people that I know who know him, that he didn't realise that this was going to happen for him and that he was going to be. I think Lincoln wanted him at the start of the season. They were going to poach him off our hands. 95% done that deal was. It never happened. But I think that's more than likely the same as Osama Ashley not leaving and Kelly and Mai not leaving, because the project that we've got is one that they can see a way for us to actually get promoted this season. Look at what this bloody podcast's about today. It's real. It's not just a flash in the pan. Yes, we've had a few streaks, but the underlying squad is actually really good once everybody's fit.
Yeah, that sounds really encouraging. What was I going to say? Defensively then, Danny, was it a kind of game where you'd give the defence some credit, or did you feel like the lack of attacking intent from Cambridge meant that it was difficult to judge the likes of Ollie Turtin and Ollie Turton and Joseph Aluwo? I found Aluwo easier than Turton. I don't know how that happened.
Joseph. Adibola Aluwo is the man. I don't know who Joseph Aluwo is. He's probably an ex-player of somebody's.
Just talk, Danny.
Let's go. So yeah, I mean, Carl did. I think it was either in the documentary or in his post-match, said that it was his favourite performance of the season, even though it lacked the attacking magic and flair, because of the defensive discipline and how hard we worked against a well-organised team. And the player that I actually liked most, I'll talk about two of them. I will go back to Aluwo in a second, but I really liked Turton as a right-sided centre-back. He's quite small, and Kouassi kept trying to edge over to him or from goal kicks to try and, it's naturally be able to out-jump a player that small with Kouassi, but he's a very, very good footballer. He's somebody who I can easily see. I think he has probably played maybe as a defensive midfielder in the past. I think that's part of his arsenal, is Turton. And although he's not been used as that, I don't think at all for us. We've gone with either Butcher or Grant or Ash, Butcher, Grant or Ashley. Yes, I do like Turton a lot. Aluwo, I was fascinated to see how he was going to deal with a player like Kouassi, because Aluwo is one of the most polite, and I mean on the field defenders that I've ever seen, because he's got the presence of a brute, but he doesn't have the character of one. He doesn't bully players. He doesn't kind of impose himself on him. He likes to, I've said it to you before, I think, that he likes to play the game like Stefan Negru does, which is nip the ball away surgically and be clean, not give away fouls and play that way, despite his actual build. And I think once he started to realise that Kouassi was drifting away from him and trying to go against Turton or Garbutt on the side, then he just thought, well, actually, no, Luke, you come over here, I'll take that. So I thought he stepped up to it, because I wouldn't want to mark Kouassi. You know what I mean? He might not score many goals, but he's an absolute oak tree, that man. I wouldn't like to try and shift him in an aerial duel. So, yeah, I think defensively we were good. And I do think that deserves credit, because the whole team worked hard. Fair play to him, yeah. No complaints, really.
Gentle giant Adi Aluwo.
Yeah.
So, Danny, every time I have you on the podcast, I'm going to ask you about if you've moved in any direction on Salford's promotion prospects.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, presumably right now, are you feeling fairly bullish about top 7?
Yeah, top 3 isn't. I'm not writing that off, because I can't, because I do think there's enough quality in that team. I don't think he's always using it in the right way, because I've probably said to you before, why would you bring in your George Grants and your Matt Butchers and your Rose, what's he called, Michael Rose, Brandon Cooper, players who can actually, manipulate a football around the field and still play a direct long ball style? It doesn't quite work for me. So I still keep looking for signs that Cal's trying to move us away from that. Every now and again I see it. I'm starting to see a few more triangles where we kind of pass out to the wing back and we look for a midfielder to join them and have like a little pattern over on either side of the field. So it's coming. I'm sure it's being drilled to death in training. But yeah, I think we've got some excellent players. And I just want to say this about George Grant, because the thing that would probably go unnoticed unless people are watching 90 minutes of our performances is that we're getting a lot of chances. We must be deliberately trying to do this to create them centrally towards the edge of the penalty area, almost like just outside the little centre circle part of the penalty area.
Yeah.
And we haven't really got anyone to convert them. Cesse's not a shooter. Udo, yes, but he's already in the box probably. And I think the player, now we've got a bit of an injury crisis in midfield, Woodburn's out, Ashley's out, etc. George Grant, I think he can fire them on for toffee. I think he's the man to play that Beckham, Lampard, not Beckham, maybe more Lampard, the late joining, just picking up the scraps and hitting the top corner. And I'd like to see Grant get a few games because he's not really had a run since he's come here, to be honest, which is a shame.
Yeah, I think he's a very Jorge Grant is a very accomplished technician. Had a great half season with Notts County under Kevin Nolan, and then did a really impressive. I think he was one of the Player of the Year contenders for Lincoln City when they got to the player final League One under Mike Blackton. Yeah, so he's a really good technician, and so yeah, I think if he's in the right headspace, he's a class above League Two. I think Jorge Grant. Right, well, Danny, that just about wraps it up. Thanks so much for joining us, and look forward to catching up later in the season.
Pleasure. I'll just mention one quick player that I noticed last night, young lad. I mentioned him sometimes they come off, sometimes they don't. It's Bruno Padovani. He's a central midfielder, specialist, I believe, but he was converted to, I think, left wing back yesterday. Very good on the half turn, scored a goal, looks very, very nimble. Bruno Padovani, don't forget that name.
We'll remember the name. Thanks a lot, Danny. Speak to you soon.
Pleasure. Thanks, Gab.
Cheers. We will be joined by Dave Leister from the View from the Finders podcast on Grimsby Town. But for now, we're joined by Ben Nichols from the excellent Fools Rush In podcast on Swindon Town. Ben, thanks so much for joining us.
No worries.
2-1 victory over Tranmere in the last league game, thanks to a lovely, albeit deflected strike from your on loan star, Finley Munro.
Oh, was it deflected? I don't know. To see that again. It may have taken a little flick on the way. It was a cracking strike, by the way. Not bad with the swinger foot. I think it was just about deserved at the end. I think it was a out of the blue with the equaliser. It nearly rocked us, but prevailed in the end with a good winner.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that sort of surprised me about watching Swindon this season is you're playing players in positions that you wouldn't ordinarily expect them. So, we've spoken about Ollie Clark playing in defence. We've spoken about Tom Nichols moving from attack to midfield. And more recently, we've seen Darren Oldacre take on a very attacking sort of forward role, if you like, playing just behind Ollie Palmer, where conventionally I'd almost think Darren Oldacre and Tom Nichols should be swapping positions, but it seems to be working for you.
Yeah, Oldacre's pretty good technician on the ball. He's been playing as a 10. That link up between the midfield and the strikers, I think he's done quite a useful job there. He scored a lovely goal and the winner against Rotherham, deep in extra time. He's not always in the first choice 11, but he's quite a useful player to bring on in the right situation, and that's what Ian Hoddery likes to do. He's got different players for different situations. He likes to call his starters and his finishers and horses for courses with this squad that he's got, because he's got quite a big squad to choose from. And if the situation is right, he sticks Oldacre there, and that sort of 10 role is when the game's open, he's quite deadly. If it's quite a tight game, I don't think a team against I would say quite a battling team wouldn't have them there, but if the game's looking quite open or stretched, he's quite a useful player to have that.
Certainly is. I wanted to ask you about McGregor coming in for the other wing back that you've normally had that's done extremely well this season, Joe Snowden. How's Joe McGregor getting on, and has he seized his opportunity?
It's all right. They're both injured at the minute, which has been the problem. Joe Snowden pulled up with a hamstring, I think the day before we played Tranmere. And then McGregor picked up a knock against Tranmere himself. So we're a bit short on right wing backs at the minute, which is a bit of a shame. But both of them are similar position, but different type of players. Sort of McGregor is a little bit more defensive minded. Snowden, who's a naturally attacking player, again, he's another player that you bring up, usually would be an attacking midfielder, can play, sort of behind the front two strikers or sort of a wide winger type striker, but he's exclusively sort of used as a wing back. Going forward has been excellent this season. Has a lot to learn a little bit defensively. Was McGregor defensively is pretty sound, but doesn't hold the same qualities going forward as Snowden. So yeah, McGregor. It's good to see McGregor's back. He obviously he's one of their own, so the Swindon fans do hold him in quite high regard. But he loves to press, Ian Holloway, and he loves to be attacked. So obviously Snowden gets the nod, and he's having a whirlwind of the first season as a professional season with scoring and the numerous assists, and he's quite a handful down the right.
Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to ask you about the attacking dynamic, especially combination between Ollie Palmer and Glatzel, who I know was very high rated at Tranmere, and he's had a period where he struggled for momentum due to injuries. But there was always the feeling that you get him fit and he can be one of the best players in the division. Are we starting to see that now?
Yeah, I think Glatzel's been playing. He's had a chance now because Drennan's been suspended, and so he's had a little chance of playing up front. Now he against Rotherham, he came up with a remarkable stats of 16k that he ran, unbelievable figures, and that's how much he works hard. I think there's a lot more to his game than just goals, and he can play again. And a player that's quite versatile. He can play anywhere across the front three. He's been playing as a 10 as well, and he can also chip in at wing back, which is what he's been doing. So he's all over the place, and he's runs and runs and runs and runs, and he's solid. I think it was affecting his confidence that he wasn't quite getting the goals that he was at the start of his career, and that he was usually like a number 9 at Liverpool, and he came through the academy as a number 9, and he's been utilised a little bit different. But the Swindon fans absolutely love him. They think he's brilliant. His work rate second to none, and they, football fans recognise that, don't they? When you got someone who just keeps on going and plays for the shirt. You don't have to be prolific. The fans will take to you, and I think he's got that at Swindon. And he's got bags. If he had that goals, if he had that natural ability to score what Britain's doing this season and pick up 20 to 25 goals a season, he'd be playing at a much higher level than he is right now. He's a bit streaky when it does come to the goals, but I think there's more asked of him for that at the minute. And Glatz is one of the fans' faves at the minute, purely just because of the work rate and the commitment that he shows every game.
Is talking of Aaron Drennan, is he going to be available soon?
2 more games out. He played last night, scored a hat-trick against MK
in
the the red card in the FA Cup doesn't count in the virtual paint. So he was out, and unfortunately he did lash out, and it was a 3-game ban. It's very un-Drennan-esque as well, because he's not that type of player, so something must have been said, and at the spur of the moment he lashed out. Whether he went for a punch, the referee caught it, a straight red card, and there was no complaints. So we're missing against Tranmere. He'll be missing against Fleetwood, and be missing in a massive game against Grimsby as well, which is huge. But he could play last night, and he scored a hat-trick, so he reminded everyone of how good he can be. So he got 90 minutes. So he's staying sharp anyway. But yeah, he was fantastic last night. Could have had more goals, got 3. So he's still looking good. But he's the one door closes, another opportunity, and it was Glatzel that played up against Tranmere. He played very, very well. Ibachaman as well started last night, and he's obviously got a sniff, and he got Billy Bowden as well as Palmer and all the others strikers that we got. So the door's open for others. So the competition is good. But I think he played claim with the hat-trick last night, so that's all right. I'm happy with that.
Absolutely, we'll let him off. last time you won the title at this level, you
Hmm.
had a really good enforcer in like Anthony Grant, who I thought
Yeah,
was playing such an important role that season.
unbelievable.
The one thing
Unbelievable.
I would possibly say from the outside, looking at this Swindon side in comparison with that one, and maybe the reason why a really good Swindon teams in the past haven't quite got over the line, maybe the one under Mark Cooper, perhaps, it's
Hmm.
maybe not having that sort of enforcer presence. And I just wonder if that's something you might look at in January.
Possibly. I think there's going to be some movement in January. I think we've been talking about it. We've just had our chief scout just go to Man City.
Oh, right.
So, yeah, he's done quite well there. So we're
Yeah.
actually looking for someone else double sharpish for January comes in. Obviously, we've got Ollie Clark that can play that role. And last night, he very much was in that role, if anyone watched that game. And Tom Nichols runs about all over the place, and he loves to throw a challenge, and he's quite
But
a good link-up player. But he's
very
not a
consistent,
natural.
though. Yeah, of
No.
course.
Well, he's been playing that sort of. Holloway sees things in players that no one else really does, and immediately he's moved Tom back to play in front of the back three and play as that 8 role. And you'll be surprised. You come watch Swindon and watch Tom Nichols. He's not playing as a 10. He's not playing as a forward. He sits in front of the back lot and he puts himself about a little bit. So that's the kind of what we've been doing. Ollie Clark would be in a natural that position because that's kind of what he was doing at Mansfield, wasn't he? Sort of workhorse, sorry, I should say. And that link, that number 8 in the link midfield. But mainly he's there as someone to make it a bit nasty. But he's been sat at the back because Tom Nichols is preferred because he's probably a little bit better manoeuvring the ball, but also can do the grunt and the dirty work. He loves to tackle.
Okay. Right. Do you know that?
But I wouldn't say he's not an Anthony Grant territory though.
No,
I will say that he's not. He's not that. Is he was superb at that sort of thing. That was his role, wasn't it? Really.
Yeah.
But he ticks that box though. I do agree. There's probably others better at it, but he really likes in Nichols the way he can manoeuvre and link up play as well as the dirty part.
It's very interesting that you say that he runs back a lot and he loves a challenge because I've always had a certain image of Tom Nichols in my head, maybe going back a lot earlier in his career, particularly his time at Bristol Rovers. I don't think I'd have ever thought of him as I've always known that he's had a good work ethic, but I don't remember in the sort of perceptions of him at Bristol Rovers as he loves a challenge. It was more of a dainty technical player. So it may be that somebody like Ian Holloway has just kind of rubbed off on him slightly differently and he's brought new qualities to his game. But it doesn't feel like a thing that he's always had, to me anyway.
No. Quite. When he signed for Swindon, I thought he'd be a 9/10. And he was an out forward, really.
He's never been an out-and-out striker, even though he has played there. That's not his game.
It's a sort of but as a front three, he can play in those roles.
Yeah.
And that was my first initial impression of him. And then when he started, I think it was at Bradford in the 5-4 last season, where he started to play a little bit deeper and deeper. And it started to work for him a little bit. And it's kind of now his, he's not really thought of as a forward anymore. So he's just reborn in that position, which is good for him. But he's that's kind of his role now. But that's kind of Holloway's way, really. It's just everyone sort of
Holloway's way.
Holloway's way. It is unique. It is unique.
Yeah.
Do love him though.
Yeah, absolutely. What was I going to ask? Ryan Tafazoli's back from suspension soon, I imagine, as well. Great. Okay,
he's back. He's had a few knocks, injury. He's back in. He's been sort of eased in. James Ball is back as well. Again, another one who can play that sort of defensive position. So that it's great to have them back in the sides, especially Tafazoli, because he got injured after 1-0 down at Accrington, and we went on a little bit of wobble after that, where we went a few games, albeit there was a couple of credit draws against Colchester and Notts County, but we did go on a little winless run of about 3-4 games. We did concede a few. So he's come back and he's a good communicator, he's a good talker, which Holloway likes. and he sort of dominates the back line a little bit. And he came off the bench against Tranmere and looked his usual self. And it's only the virtue paint. He played the majority of the game last night, largely unchallenged, but he was dominant, though against largely teenagers, let's to be fair. So yeah, he's a big presence and he's a big character anyway. You can see that social media. Yeah, it's good to have him back.
Certainly is. So, are you fairly? When I ask you fairly bullish on top 7, I'm not saying that you're writing off top 3 or anything like that. But in terms of where we are with regards to Swindon's promotion prospects, do you think that you can be pretty hopeful that that you'll be in that top 7 somewhere?
Yeah. I'll give you the same answer which I gave my last few times. We are in a great position at the minute. We need to keep that gap between 8th, make it big as humanly possible. The goal against Tranmere was massive because rather than being just a point ahead of 3rd, we're now 3 points ahead of 3rd. So, we've got that sort of, that we can have that error in us and still be well placed. And it's important that we keep on top of Walsall as well and keep the pressure on them because we're level on points with them, only 2 goals difference between us. So that's where we got to look. We got to keep reaching, looking above us and chasing off Walsall and hope the rest of it looks after itself. And we are going to have another bad spell. It's going to happen at some point where we do go 3, 4, 5 games without a win. We are going to have some bad results like Carrington. So we need that points gap to be big enough. So when we do have that wobble, we've got that safety gap that we can still be in a good place. So that's really where we are at the minute. Anything can happen. We're not only halfway through November. So let's one step at a time. Let's see where we are in December. Let's get to January, see where we are after January, and then we can get excited if we're in a good position come February. Then we can start talking about the running. But it is what it is at the minute. So at the moment, I'm quite confident. But football's football.
Absolutely. Well, Ben, it's been great to have you on, and thanks for taking the time to join us.
No worries. Anytime. Cheers.
Top man. Delighted to be joined by my final guest of the evening, which is Dave Leister from the View from the Findus podcast. I can't see you at the moment, Dave. Hopefully the image is going to come on. Are you able to hear me at the moment?
I can hear you loud and clear. Sorry, that's me.
Perfect. I can see you as well. Brilliant. Well, listen, Dave, just wanted to ask you about Grimsby's first third of the season. It's a little unlike a lot of promotion contenders that are possibly quite streaky, and each of them have gone through without a win so far this season. Grimsby haven't done that, but they're also yet to win more than 2 in a row as well. So you're possibly a little bit more on the inconsistent side of the spectrum, but you are also ticking over results.
Definitely, it's encouraging that we keep bouncing back. And what we are doing is we tend to be dominating games. The statistics all point in the right direction, even when we lose. With strong possession, XG is rocketing, and touches in boxes, all the things you'd expect of a team on the up are showing in the right direction. It's encouraging that we do keep bouncing back from a defeat, that we haven't had that run. And the question we find ourselves asking now is, if we can string those wins together, could we be in a really strong position, coming into Christmas festive time when that league table really shakes itself out, because it's still very bunched up, isn't it? It still feels like the first corner of a Grand Prix race or a horse race. It's very tight and congested up there.
Yeah, it's like you bounce back very quickly from setbacks, which I think is a really encouraging thing. On the other hand, there's part of me that's sort of feeling like you're so close to motoring and putting a run of wins together, and you've not done that yet. And that's the next sort of step that I think is, hopefully going to be the difference between being a playoff side and a top 3 side. But I see so much potential, and I look at the performance at Barrow. You're absolutely all over them, and if you'd won 5-0 that day, I think it wouldn't have been a surprise based on the performance. So some really encouraging signs for a performance aspect.
I couldn't agree more. My son and I made the journey up to Barrow, and it was excellent. And even going being pulled back to 2-1 just before half-time. Second half, when you expect the home team to really come out fired at you, we dominated possession again for another 15, 20 minutes. And it was only really two unfortunate mistakes from our keeper, who has been pretty consistent so far, that let it slip, unfortunately. But again, a really strong performance. We went to a place that we haven't done very well on the road to in the time that we've been together in the league. And so that was, a point on the road they would probably have taken before setting off. But when you're looking at the up end of the table, you want to be trying to win everything, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I did notice about the 11 at Barrow, Dave, was that Danny Rose and Jays Cabia started simultaneously, and this has been a bit of a dilemma, I imagine, for the other Dave, in that it's often been Cabia started the season on fire after signing from Truro, and Danny Rose had an injury disrupted start to the season, so Cabia was obviously the number one, but Rose is obviously a very established and reliable League Two centre forward that's been part of some really good teams at this level, and actually to see them strike up a partnership seems quite encouraging.
It certainly does. Our first goal on Saturday was, Rose won a flick on, Vernon fed Cabia, and he sort of ran with the feet the ball into the box, and the goal came on from that. It's very encouraging to see that start well. For them to pair up. They've both got very different style of play. Rose is your absolute number 9 sort of striker, picking up anything in the box and putting it in. I think he scored from about 3 inches out on Saturday. Whereas Cabia, ball at his feet, running at a player, a good shot on him. He's going to get you down the channels. He's going to get in front. He's got that flexibility in his game. You're absolutely right. He started like a train. It looked like league football. It was an absolute natural to him. And then maybe he's tired a little bit with the sort of full-time training regime, and the matches came so quickly with our cup run, and obviously the Virtue Trophy and everything. There's a lot of football being played for somebody who was semi-pro up until signing for us. So he's tired a little bit. Maybe defenders have had a look at him, realised they could give him a yard and protect themselves a bit. But it'll bring a new dimension now with if we continue to play with 2. I think Dave Artell will change it depending on circumstance. When he looks at the opposition, but it was certainly encouraging.
Certainly was. One thing I really liked was for the Kieran Green goal. You mentioned how they linked up really nicely for the opener, but for Greeny's goal, it was as if they both dropped very deep, and it almost encouraged Barrow's defence to hold a high line, and that's where that sort of somehow allowed was it Harvey Rogers to play the ball over the top for Kieran Green, and then all of a sudden he's in a foot race with Charlie Raglan, and you can see like Kieran Green is such an athlete, a real physical specimen. So I thought that was a really nice, I suppose, pattern of play and coordination of movement.
Definitely. Again, the tweak to the formation meant that our wingers, for much of the start of the season, were playing in a more sort of with slightly withdrawn role, to be a bit more protection on the back there, so you could play the 2 up front, and that allowed then Green to burst forward, like you say, and it was a great ball. And Kieran Green has had an absolute metamorphosis. What a transformation he's had for us under David Artell. He is he drives the tempo of the team. He really does. He's probably there's a couple of there's a sort of spine of players that we have there, but he's one of those players where if he's not there, you just wonder who's going to put that impetus into it, and his desire to get to the ball, and then some of the magic he now pulls off is it's a treat to watch. Really, it really is.
He'd be almost a Premier League footballer if it was about desire and drive, and he's an unbelievable sort of culture carrier, and I think Kieran Green takes a lot of the credit for Grimsby's improvement over the last couple of years because of his willingness to buy into different ideas and sort of run the dressing room. So absolutely every credit to Kieran Green. I wanted to ask you about another midfielder, Dave, which is Geza Turley, who was signed about a year ago, I think, from Scandinavia, and I suppose hints at a certain amount of succession planning for Grimsby, because obviously George McEachran is a huge asset, someone the club would like to keep hold of, but obviously he's interesting. He is going to interest clubs higher up the pyramid. Do you see Turry as an exciting successor? There you go, to McEachran.
I certainly do. McEachran obviously, has been a class act now for more than a season. And there's always with his contract being up in the summer, there's a sort of like 10 more years plea from the crowd, but it could quite easily be 10 more games, couldn't it? As we look towards the next transfer window. So it's good to have Giza Turry, our Faroese midfielder there. You're right, Dave Artell succession planning is second to none really. It's great to have a long-term vision for the club where players are being brought in with no immediate need, to jump in the team on that Saturday or the Tuesday night. He's developing players in his system the way he wants to. Turry, Kieran Green's one that's completely changed from a bit of a sort of a defensive hacker to this sort of really cultured footballer now. But then we've seen with Turry, he came in, he's maybe a little bit slight for English football. He seems to have bulked up a bit. He's playing with a bit of a swagger now, and he's really sort of clever and he looks after the football when to play it around. Very similar to George McEachran in that way. And then it's just that sort of reading and learning of the game that George makes it look very easily. And we'll see how Turry does with that. But confidence is flowing as well, because he's actually a Faroese international, and they've come from nowhere in their group to be with a vague chance of qualifying for the World Cup. So for Grimsby Town to have a World Cup interest next summer would be.
I know. Was it the Italian goalkeeper, the last one that had any sort of links, or who am I thinking of? The Italian goalkeeper, the club did a feature with.
We had an Italian winger, Ivano Bonetti.
Bonetti, that's the one.
Yeah, I don't think he was quite full Italy international. I think probably the closest we've come to is the hinterland, the autumnal stages of Gary Birtles and Neil Webb's careers were spent here, and we had Paul Warhurst. But in terms of England internationals, but no, I
think I might have been
some place for Iceland occasionally. We've got a lad called Jude Sunsup Bell who might be on the verge of a call up for Thailand, yet he's yet to really break into the Grimsby team. And Dave Artell, of course, played for Gibraltar. So
not quite the same. Not quite the same if they're managing. I might have got Bonetti confused with the Chelsea goalkeeper from the 1970s.
Possibly.
Yeah. Anyway, right. Where was I? So internationals for Grimsby. Talking of goalkeepers, I want to ask you about Christy Pym, Dave, because he had a really good start to the season. I saw him at Walsall, where he was arguably man of the match, and he saved you a lot of points, some would say, early in the campaign. A little bit of a drop-off in form, needs to rebuild his confidence, doesn't he?
He does, yeah. We've had a bit of a sort of mini goalkeeping crisis over the last few years, where he wasn't quite sure who our number one was last season. I think even Artell came out and said, I've got two number ones, obviously to keep both their heads up. And we had the lad who's gone to Newport, Jordan Wright, and he was Jake Eastwood. He was Jordan Wright was contracted, but then told he could leave at the end of the season. Jake Eastwood's contract came up, although he had regained the number one jersey at the end of the season. So if the contract situation had been different, we might have seen Jake stay. I'm not sure, but I think there was clearly a desire for a fresh pair of hands. Christy Pym has come in, and like you said, he had a great start to the season. Walsall particularly was absolutely excellent display from him. I wouldn't be a Grimsby Town fan without mentioning the Man United match as well, where he played a really good, really strong game.
Yeah, got to take any opportunity to get that in.
A couple of recognised strikers that he did quite well against as well. So, on the whole, he's been great. But Saturday was a bit of a nightmare. It was just two sort of fairly soft shots from outside the box that. I did a bit of goalkeeping in my days. I would have fancied my chances with them, I think. But there we go. It was one of those, and it's difficult, isn't it? Goalkeeper, last line of defence. You make a mistake when you're an attacking midfielder. You've got 6-7 people behind you to sort it out. But you make a mistake there, it's a goal. The concern was that there was Ebbsfleet in the FA Cup the previous Saturday. Their goal was also a soft one at the near post. I hope it's a blip. I hope maybe he's not 100% or something like that, and he recovers quickly.
Would you remind me, Dave, if you've got any other because you had the young lad who played one game at Carlisle last season.
Yeah, Autumn. He's on loan at a sort of step 7, step 8 team locally. I'm sure he could be called back if we needed to. But we've also got Chris Casper's son from Burnley.
Okay.
Just to cover. He's played in the Virtue Trophy, but he doesn't sometimes make the bench in the league because Hartel plays the odds and thinks more outfield players on the bench than the keeper sometimes. So I'm just hoping with him that it's a blip or he's just under the weather slightly or something, and then it's not going to affect the confidence, because what we have seen a big change in is that marshalling of the defence and that controlling of the play when he hasn't necessarily got the ball that we've probably not had before with younger, inexperienced keepers.
Yeah, so I mean, I think with I do think there's a slightly different psychology with defenders and certainly goalkeepers in terms of rotation than with attacking and midfield players, because I think that area of the pitch, so much of it is about relationships and understandings, and I think if you do drop someone, it can say you're sort of somewhat, there's a bit of a I'm not sure about trusting you kind of thing. And so I imagine Dave Hartel is going to keep with Christy Pym, bearing in mind Casper hasn't been bought into expecting to play a huge amount of minutes. But hopefully Christy Pym can regain his confidence, because he has proven to be a very good goalkeeper at this level previously with Exeter and other clubs. What was I going to ask? Also want to ask you about centre half, because I do feel like you're possibly missing. I've spoken to Ed Walker, who's often a co-host on this, and one assumption that he has, which I kind of agree with, is Tyrrell Warren and Harvey Rogers. They're different ways round than I would have expected. I would have thought the centre half by trade, who can play as a fullback, would be the middle centre half, and Tyrrell Warren, who's the right back by trade, will be playing right centre half. I mean, this is going back to last season, but it's interesting that Dave's gone for it this way around.
Definitely. We've got Cameron McJannet at left centre back, left-footed centre back. He's absolute class act. So he's cemented into that position. And then it's who he plays alongside it, whether it's a 3 or a 4. And we've had, like you say, Harvey Rogers on the books for a couple of years now, and he was a centre back, came in as a centre back, played as a centre back, and then under Hartel we've had a switch because Tyrrell Warren started playing as a full back, and we were shipping quite a few goals from that side, set pieces, corners, and things. It just wasn't quite working, and I think he took him out of the team for a little while, then brought him back as a centre back. And what he is, he's rapid and he's quite aggressive. He's really sort of, whereas sort of Cameron McJannet is sort of steady, sort of considered, and really good with the ball at his feet. Tyrrell brings this sort of pace and athleticism to the defence as well. So they are a good pairing, and to all intents and purposes, it looks like we're playing inverted and sort of patched up. But Rogers as a sort of a wing back is an interesting one. He gets into some great positions. He's getting a few assists to his name, but it's a percentage thing. It doesn't guarantee success. And we look far more comfortable on the left, I feel, with Sweeney and Vernon attacking than maybe on the right. But he's done a great job. He's learning the trade, and under David Hartel, he improves players as we've touched on previously. So, he's giving it a push. Whether it's a long time permanent solution, or whether we might be in the market for a right back or an option there, remains to be seen. But it's doing a job.
Certainly is. It's interesting that you mention Sweeney in that kind of left back / left wing back role, however you want to sort of pin down the formation. I don't even know if Dave Hartel is too fussed on formation and more about shapes and roles and responsibilities, but I do. Interesting to know whether you'll persist with the front two with Rose and Cabia, who show really nice signs of combining, or whether you move Vernon back to the left-hand side and Thorson over to the right, and whether Sweeney plays slightly instead of plays on the left behind Vernon. Lots of options there.
Yeah, we are. It's quite an unusual situation to be in, actually, that we have a lot of attacking potential. And Sweeney is currently out of the team at the moment because he took a bit of a knock to his shoulder in the FA Cup match. Saturday was the first starting 11 that I didn't involve him for a little while. And he did. He pulled Vernon back, although the way we played against Barry, you couldn't really tell because we were so much on the front foot. It looked like Vernon was playing his natural position. Dave Artell will, I'm sure, take it game by game in terms of the opposition and how they line up. Although the emphasis does tend to be on how we play. He's quite clear that he wants us to go out and win, and we'll impose ourselves on the opposition.
Well, I would say when he was at Crewe, certainly his best team at Crewe, which is a similar stage to where you're at now, I would say that he didn't tend to change shape or rotate very much. So I wouldn't expect a huge amount of change, but I was actually a little bit surprised that he's gone with Rose and Cabia as a front two, because that's not something he did very often at Crewe once he had a formula that he was really happy with. That's kind of maybe caught me out a little bit.
Yeah, he's probably evolving with the players he's got available, which is progressive, and how he's transformed Grimsby's fortunes over the last 18 months. He's got masses of credit in the bank to do what he likes, basically, I think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a wonderful job he's done. So with that in mind, Grimsby's promotion prospects. I've spoken to some who think maybe top 7 rather than top 3. I believe you're a top 3 side. Where do you sort of stand with it all?
I certainly think we've got potential to be. It's as we touched upon it. It's putting a run together and stopping that win one, draw one, win one, lose one. If we can pull results together, we could be in a very strong position. What I'm very pleased about are the stats and how we're performing and, say, dominating games. And we've already played, Salford, Walsall, Milton Keynes, we've been 2-1. Gillingham we've beat at home. We've yet to play Notts County. We've got Swindon coming up week on Saturday, which will be a really big match with the added impetus and spice of Ian Holloway being in charge there. So that'll be
a county ground, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, so that'll be a big test for us, as will Chesterfield coming up as well, because Paul Cook we spar with a lot, and they're a team that's always been at a similar level to us. So we'll certainly, every team will say this, but we'll certainly have a better idea come festive. But it would be very odd for us not to be in top 7, I think, with the way the performance is and our style of play, and just what the data and the statistics are bearing out, because we are taking teams on and we're on the front foot. And yes, we do get caught in transition and we are capable of making a mistake and shipping a goal or two, but we are creating a lot of chances. And with Rose and KB together or interchanged, we've got a young lad, Cam Gardner, to bring back as well, who really impressed against someone called Harry Maguire the other week. We've got a great chance to really make a go of it and try and stay in League One a little bit, because I've been following Grimsby Town for nearly 40 years now, and I think we seem to just go straight through it, bounce back out of it, or fall down through it. So I don't think that we've strung two seasons together in the third tier.
It's interesting because I remember I'm a Birmingham City fan, and I remember watching the season review, and I remember you beat us 3-1 at Blundell Park when you had Michael Boulding in that time, and so you had that time where you were a very, I wouldn't say you're a good, you're a championship team. I'm not going to say whether you're good or not.
We were certainly punching above our weight then.
But then it was quite a quick decline, wasn't it? And then since you had a long period where one season under Slade was pretty much all you had for much of the back end of Fenty's regime, and now under Stockwood and co, you're kind of looking up again.
Yeah, it's been quite the transformation. You've got to go as low as you can before you realise, what you had maybe. I remember, 4,500 people watching us at Blundell Park in the Championship. We'd be playing teams like Portsmouth and Wolves and Sunderland week in, week out, and managers getting sacked, and people looking at playoffs to get into the what became the Premier League. So yeah, it's a funny old game, as people who've done this job much longer than I have would say. But
yeah,
it's great for your stats for doing like the 92 clubs though, because you need that jump up and down the leagues to get as many.
That's true, isn't it? Yeah, you don't want to be staying in the same
good.
league for ages. No. Although I do feel, you have had a few seasons in last 10 years, it's been one season in the National League, and it's been pretty familiar with League Two, hasn't it? So you'd be hoping to refamiliarise yourselves with League One, which I would say is a size of club that's probably top half League One. I would say is about your natural level if we look at fan base and all that kind of thing.
Absolutely, I'd welcome that, and I'd snap your hand off right now to have a.
I'm not able to offer it, Dave. Anyway, best of luck, Dave, for the rest of the season, and thanks for joining us. And keep up the great work on View from the Finders.
Pleasure, Gab. Thank you.
Top man. Thanks everyone for watching. Thanks to all my guests. This has been the EFL Debate League Two podcast on the promotion race in League Two, and we'll see you again next week.